Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Favorite Albums Through the Decades. We've got a pretty cool show lined up for you here today. First time ever on Sea of Tranquility. I want to welcome from the UK, Niamh the Prog Nerd. How are you? How's everything?
I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Happy to have you on the channel. And joining us also is Rand Kelly from In the Prog Seat. What's happening, Rand? How you doing?
Oh, it's just hot. It's like 83 in my room right now. Reading is just going to die. We're going to be, in 2 months, we'll be 114.
You know, Rand, there's this thing called air conditioning. You probably should get using it pretty soon because you're going to melt away.
I got one in the other room. This room has no air conditioning.
We're represented. We're all far apart from each other. So Rand is on the west coast of the U.S. I'm on the east coast, and Niamh, of course, is in the U.K. So there's a lot of distance and a lot of time in between all of us. But we've made it happen for you here today for this episode of Favorite Albums Through the Decades. Of course, we're going to do Yes today. I'm representing Yes. We're all representing Yes here on the shirts today. So there you have it. See, so we've got this band has got their start in the 60s. They're still active to this day. So I've asked everybody here to, in each decade, pick your favorite release. And we're going to have ladies first today. So we're going to have Niamh kick us off with the 1960s, which is probably the easiest one here because they only released one album. So we'll get through the 60s pretty quick, I think, here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great album. I've not heard it too many times, but there's a lot of stuff on there that I really do love. And you kind of can see throughout, you can tell that this band is definitely going to go somewhere with this sound already. You can tell they're going to progress into this great band that they've become already. And a lot of the songs on here that I love a lot. I mean, I think my favorite is probably, if I can get it up now, Yesterday and Today. That's my favorite on the album, and I do love the first track as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good album. Solid, right? I mean, little
Absolutely.
psychedelic. I think the seeds of what's to come is definitely there. Obviously, we're all picking this one because it's the only album released in the 60s. Rand, you got anything you want to say about this album before we move on to the 70s?
I got the Japanese Microsonics HCDC, whatever that is.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is, I don't even know what year this is.
I love this record. I really do. But I didn't hear it first, but I'll go into that later.
I didn't either. I heard this pretty late, actually. I kind of ignored the first two albums and got this. I probably didn't listen to this till the early 90s for the first time.
Every little thing just blew my mind because I was already a huge Beatles fan. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, this is great. I get to jump from the Beatles to Yes. What a lovely maneuver there.
Yep. Yeah, there's some similarities definitely between the two from this time period, I think. The band also, probably listening a little to Vanilla Fudge and stuff like that. But yeah, good, pleasant album, I think. But the best is yet to come. So let's move into the 70s. Back to you, Niamh. What's your favorite album of Yeses from the 70s?
I'm going to go with, from maybe a popular choice or not, but close to the edge. I'm repping the shirt today. It's my favorite Yes album and one of my favorite albums of all time. It's just, even though it's just such a short album, it's 3 tracks long, that span of 40 minutes, there's just so much to dissect and so much great music in that. And, the build-ups in the first track and the way they're escalated is just absolutely, mind-blowing to me. It was something that I'd never heard before when I first listened to the album. And I just, especially, obviously, Rick Wakeman's keyboard playing is probably my favorite of his performances in the Yes discography. And also Chris Squire, who's one of my idols, just blew me away with the bass playing as well.
Great album indeed. Arguably the greatest progressive rock album of all time. Arguably the title track, the greatest progressive rock song of all time. Rand, I'm guessing you picked this as well, but maybe you're going to surprise me.
No, it's not a surprise, but I have never mind. Stephen Wilson remix.
That is a great
Roger Dean redid the cover. You were saying before, like the shades of green. You thought, what is this? What is this? So Roger redid it, and he did a nice job. I haven't even played this yet. I got this box set and I haven't played any of them.
Oh,
You
it
know
sounds
what?
amazing.
Is it
sounds
really good? I've heard so many of the Steven
He
Wilson
loves it.
remixes, and I love them, but I never got that one for whatever reason.
It's definitely worth getting. It's absolutely fantastic. That was probably my favorite remix on the in the box set.
You know, the thing is, Niamh, and I've talked about this before, it's like for someone like me and Rand, I'm sure too, we have bought these albums so many times over the years in so many formats, so many remasters and remixes. At some point, it's like, when is like enough? But Steven Wilson is a magician, right? He has done some
Absolutely.
great things on some of these remixes, and so I've always been tempted. I just never pulled the trigger on it. But yeah, it's my choice as well from the '70s. I mean, come on, all three tracks are amazing. Siberian Khatru is my favorite Yes song of all time. Close to the Edge is probably number 2 or 3, and You and I is gorgeous. You know what's amazing about this album? It's like the fact that Bill Bruford, after this album, said, all right, I'm kind of bored. I'm going to go and join King Crimson. I'm like, how could you be bored with this? Like, what about this? And Fragile is boring to you? I don't know. But, Bruford's kind of an interesting character.
Absolutely.
There's a fun fact about that song. A lot of people don't know is Bill Bruford never played that song in one whole from start to finish until they did the Anderson Bruford Wakeman Howe tour.
Interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Wow. Sucks to be him, right? that's what he walked out of, right? So
I just remember doing it piece by piece, and they were done.
That whole title track was just constructed of all these different pieces that they recorded separately, and then they just kind of put it all together. Eddie Offord and the band just kind of like, let's assemble this, and sounds perfect, right? Crazy how that worked out.
It's my favorite song of all time.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So. All right, so we move on to the 80s. Here's where it gets interesting. So, Niamh, back to you. What's your choice for the 80s?
I'm going with Drama. I think it's possibly, I get up there with my favorite Yes albums, even though different lead singer, different lineup completely. I actually really like it. I mean, I didn't really like it at first, but it slowly grew on me because a friend recommended it to me. I like the different approach to the album, just different sounds. And obviously that's what progressive rock's all about, progressing in music. And I know a lot of people not really into the 80s kind of progressive rock scene from the 70s bands, but I really love this. And it's just so loud in a way. It's such a big sounding track. The first track, especially Machine Messiah, I absolutely love that track. It's probably one of my favorite of the epics, Yes epics. And it's great. The production also is starting to sound very 80s. It's this beginning of the 80s sounding production techniques.
Good choice. Rand, what do you got?
Machine Messiah, when I first heard it with my best friend Bill, we said, did we accidentally buy a Black Sabbath album?
Is that Steve Howe doing that big humongous riff, right? Yeah.
And Chris Squire, I mean, his bass on this is just monstrous.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. So I guess we're all in agreement on this as well. So yeah, Drama is my pick as well.
Dear Lord.
And I like 90125 a lot, but I think, and I really liked this when it first came out because when this came out, I was just starting to get into Yes. So I didn't have that big history with them and with John Anderson, whereas Rand, you probably can attest to this. It's like, without John Anderson, a lot of hardcore Yes fans are like, this is not Yes, right? This is whatever this is, the Buggles, Yesols, whatever those different names they called this band at the time. But I think this is fantastic. Niamh, I agree with you. I think that Jeffrey Downs has some different keyboard sounds and style compared to Wakeman, and I think his style was more suited to the 80s, obviously. But I think this is a good aggressive album. There's some pretty rocking stuff on here. Trevor Horn's vocals are amazing. Might be my favorite guitar tone from Steve Howe on any Yes album.
Oh yeah,
pretty close. It's really good on here.
Yeah,
and Chris Squire sounds amazing on this album. He's the MVP of this album, I think. So so many great songs. Machine Messiah, Run Through the Light is amazing. Tempest Fugit is amazing. Into the Lens, Does It Really Happen? It's all really good. So yeah, we're in agreement. We're a well-oiled machine here. This is great.
Run Through the Light is Trevor Horn on fretless bass.
I know, right? Yeah,
and Chris is playing keyboards, piano.
Yep. He's got that little Jaco Pastorius thing going on in that song.
Oh, he's cool. Good.
Yeah, he is. All right, well, we move to the 90s. Here's where it continues to get even more interesting. So I think this is where we might all split apart here. So what do you got, Niamh, for the 90s?
I've got I think the last album in the 90s, The Ladder. That album was kind of new to me because I'm very much used to listening to the like pre-80s Yes. But I listened to this very recently because I saw it on a list of best Yes albums. So I just decided to listen to it, and I really, really loved it. Even though there was like bits of it were a little bit cheesy for me, but I did like how compelling the introduction was. Production obviously getting better and better through the decades, and the musical arrangements were fantastic. And it was almost like throwback to 70s Yes in a way, because there were bits that sounded almost Wake Mini in the keyboards, but still a bit different and still progressing in its own way. And I think that it's just a beautiful sounding album.
Great artwork on the cover, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Rand, what do you got?
You're gonna think I cheated, but I got a reason.
Okay.
This to me is the unknown prog album by Yes. In fact, it's the last time they do prog.
So here's the weird thing. So that actually didn't come out till 2001.
Yeah, I know.
But the songs appeared in the 90s on the 2 Keys to Ascension. All right, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that.
I'm putting this down in 1998. Now, have you heard this, Niamh?
I've not heard that one yet, no.
Oh, every song on here is a prog dream. Mind Drive, that is. They're both like 20 minutes long a piece. And then you got Bring Me to the Power. Footprints is just awesome. Either one, and it's okay. Sign Language and Children of the Light, real nice. This is the Tales from Topographic Oceans band reunited.
Oh wow, lovely.
And it fell apart for a lot of reasons, but it went into Open Your Eyes, but it was going to go, I think, more in this direction if it hadn't fallen apart. But who knows? Because that's just all just speculation.
More about that in a couple minutes. I'm going to stick, my choice for the 90s is going to be Talk. So this is the final album from the Trevor Rabin, era of the band. If we would have had this conversation back in the 90s, I would not have picked this. I probably would have picked Union. Union over the years has kind of fallen in the ranking for me. There's some good tracks on it, but this is actually not a bad album. I think I actually like this one even a little bit better than Big Generator. But, The Calling is a great song. I Am Waiting's got pretty good melodies on it. Real Love I'm not a big fan of, but Endless Dream is fantastic. That's the big epic at the end, which I think is really good. Walls is good. I think it's a pretty solid album. And the last we would see of the Trevor Rabin era, unfortunately. And that's my pick for the 90s as we move into the early part of the 2000s.
The only tune I don't like on that is Walls. Walls just doesn't move me.
I don't mind it too much. Where Will You Be is not a great song, but
no,
half of it's pretty good. Half of it's okay. It's not a great Yes album, but I think it's decent enough. Everything with the exception of what I'm going to talk about next, everything for me from Yes is kind of very mediocre. The struggle for me was to pick some of the more modern stuff because I'm not a huge fan of any of them, but they have their moments. I'll leave it at that. So back to Niamh for 2000.
So my pick for the 2000s is Magnification. I think it's a beautifully made album with the orchestra, and I thought that the bass on this was just amazing. I think that was like the one thing that I pointed out first was how great the bass sounded, and I also liked how Chris Squire sang one of the tracks on this. Can You Imagine? I think that I'm a big fan of his solo career, so I'm a big fan of his voice, and I really think it worked very nicely with the album. And it's, again, same with what I said before, it's a very big sounding album. It's very grand, it's very big. I think due to the orchestration on the album, I think that it was so beautifully put together.
Cool. Rand, what do you got for the 2000s?
Did you know? Oh yeah, same. Magnification. I've got the DVD here. It's really awesome in 5.1. Did you guys know that the bands were asked to vote whether they wanted an orchestra or not for that record?
The band themselves?
Yeah, they asked us to vote. Because do you guys want us to use an orchestra? And overwhelmingly, yes.
Well, I mean, they were having a hard time keeping a keyboard player at the time, so it's almost like they didn't really have a choice, right?
Because they fired Igor and they didn't have anybody to replace him right away.
Right.
So when they toured symphonically, Tom Brislin was in the band.
Yeah, yeah.
And but apparently he couldn't get on the recording, so Chris and Alan played all the keyboards on Magnification.
Yep.
In fact, there was a picture they put out with Chris and Alan sitting on an organ stool, I mean a bench. They're together playing the organ,
trying to figure it all out. Four hands are better than two, right?
With their backs facing us, sitting at the organ.
That's too funny.
No, I love
I saw him on that tour. It was a good tour. You know,
my favorite song is Dreamtime. Also, I think I'm maybe the only one that ever mentioned it, but there's two bass parts on Dreamtime. One's a regular fret bass and others fretless. Chris Squire overdubbed them, and nobody ever talks about them. And I don't ever see anything about them playing that live, so I don't think it ever got played live.
Yeah, no.
I love that tune. It rocks.
Good stuff on there.
And that's all I got from that.
My choice for the 2000s, again, I'm going to replicate what Randon mentioned. So, to me, this came out in 2001, and but the songs are all from the 90s, tacked on at the end of the Keys to Ascension. So I picked Keys Studio. Some great stuff on here, man. I mean, this is, and what I really don't understand is that these songs are so great. And again, it's the classic lineup of the band, but these songs are so great. And then it's almost like they never went back to doing stuff like this again on the handful of albums that came after it. I mean, just, Children of the Light and Mind Drive, Be the One. I mean, it's just great, epic. Yes. This is like as good as anything they've done since Drama, in my opinion. So I just have a hard time just accepting the fact that they don't have it in them to do this type of thing again, because they did it here, but whatever. But yeah, Niamh, if you don't have it, absolutely get this. If you can get your hands on it.
I'm very interested.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That album was recorded in an abandoned bank in San Luis Obispo, California.
Wow.
Now I'm even more interested.
And also, here's a fun fact that hardly anybody ever talks about is the song Be the One. That's Steve Howe on fretless bass, and Chris Squire is playing something called a piccolo guitar. Photon electric thing that he had that he found that you can't even find now, but he does it in his, he uses it and showcases it in a video called Star Licks. You should check that out. It's awesome. It's on YouTube. Chris Squire Star Licks. It's awesome because he goes through all of his guitars and talks about all the songs. And a lot of that album he mentions, and he even plays the bass part, the footprints, before the song was written. He goes, I've got something I did in 7/4, and he starts playing dum, 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 dum. So cool. You got to see that video. It's just incredible.
Wow. I'm sure it is. All right. The 2010s. Here we go. The grand finale. Niamh, what do you got?
So I've picked a live album for this one.
I don't blame you.
I did try the studio albums. I just couldn't get behind it. But I do like the Yes 50 live album from 2019. I think the version of Close to the Edge is good on that one. I'm just a fan of the Yes live albums at this point because as I said, I tried the studios, just didn't like them very much. But the Close to the Edge version on that album is great, and also Soon, which is one of my favorite bits of Relayer. Was done very well.
Cool. Rand, how about you?
Well, I didn't think to do that, but I'm going to go with my choice.
Might as well, right?
Fly From Here.
Yeah.
First version. Now, there's a second version with Trevor Horn on vocals, which I have too, called The Return Trip. And there's a new song on there that Steve Howe had written, but I can't remember much about it. But I like the very last track on here so much. It's called Into the Storm. It's just so happy sounding. Kind of reminds me of Day Tripper in a way, the way the guitar goes. But I don't have a problem with this album at all. I think it's fine. I like it.
I haven't heard the version with Trevor Horn on vocals. I've heard it's superior.
I recommend it.
Yeah, I haven't heard it. I picked it as well, basically because the one that came after it, I do not like at all. And I got to be honest, I don't even really like this one that much either. Although I do, the title track, the lengthy title track is okay. It's not an awful album. I just find it kind of pedestrian, but I mean, I want to love it. Love the artwork. I mean, Roger Dean is amazing, and it's a good sounding album. Trevor Horn's a good producer. And the tunes aren't awful, but I don't know. I have the same problem with this album that I had with Open Your Eyes and the most recent one. And I'm not even a big fan of the latter either. It's just, man, I just want Yes to like kick it into high gear a little bit. And I don't find much of these albums very kind of proggy like most of their other stuff. I don't know. It's like the band is like basically just getting to second base. I want them to go to third base and come home, and they just never do for me on these more recent albums. But, you know, what are you going to do? So but that is my choice for the 2010s. And there you have it, everybody. A trip through the decades with the music of Yes. I think we can all agree here that, you know, their strongest material was the 70s. But there's some, I mean, you know, if we were to take like a lot of the best stuff from a lot of these later albums, I mean, that's going to make a great kick-ass double album, right? You would think. So.
Yeah. Well, I like Universal Garden. I think that would fit on Key Studio. Sounds a lot like that material. That's my favorite song on Open Your Eyes. And as far as the latter, I like New Language. I think that's the most progressive song on that record. And I want to say something about Magnification. Can you imagine is what do you call a development from the Jimmy Page, Alan White, Chris Squire project called XYZ back in 1981.
Yeah.
And and 10 years later, they, or actually 20 years later, they revived that song and turned it into a nice track.
Yeah, from what I've read, there's bits and pieces of stuff that band was working on that is wound up in various different Yes songs on various different albums.
And Jimmy Page solo albums and The Firm. It's all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, what could have been, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's another guy, Jimmy Page. I mean, this guy hasn't done anything like a million years. It's like, Jimmy, if you're watching, man, come on. Get something out here. It's like we're starving for Jimmy Page music. It's been way too long. So that's a story for another day. Anyway, there you have it, everybody. In the comments below, please put in, there you have it, right? One of the greatest live albums of all time in this genre.
Yeah, it is my favorite live album of all time. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a monster.
That's mine as well.
Yeah, there you go. I think we all love it, right? Regardless of whether you think the sound is great or not, the performance is just absolutely amazing. And I'm sticking to that. So in the comments below, everybody put in what your favorite albums are throughout the decades. Of course, another one of the greatest album covers of all time.
Oh yeah, that is beautiful.
This was redone a little bit. It looks more vibrant, and when you see it like up close, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I think you should get you don't do turntables anymore, right?
No.
But it would be worth having it just for the artwork.
I have to really be in the mood to listen to Topographic Oceans. It's not one of my favorite Yes albums. It's like a middle of the pack album for me. I appreciate the grandioseness of it, and there's moments on it that are absolutely breathtaking. I find sitting through the whole thing, though, a little laborious at times. I have to really be in the mood for it. And when I am, it's amazing. But when I'm not, I don't bother with it.
For 74, it was my Bible.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
I loved it so much. I had a girlfriend back then who loved it as much as I did. And we were just like
really
centered around that, listening to that album in her bedroom with the candles. It was amazing.
Wow. I think my wife would get bored with Topographic Oceans in 3 minutes.
But she hated Relayers, so we broke up.
What? Love Topographic Oceans, but hate Relayer. That's an interesting.
Yeah, Sound Chaser, she just couldn't get into that at all.
Oh, that's a
little
shame.
too frantic, I guess.
I love it.
Anyway, there you have it, everybody. I want to thank Niamh for coming on the show. Good to see you here. Best of luck. You want to tell everybody about your channel a little bit before we let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I post very regularly. Every Wednesday I do reviews, and Mondays I talk about prog, and then Fridays I talk about vinyl. And I do videos with my dad as well, who is very, very knowledgeable on prog. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out.
Cool. So everybody head over there and subscribe to, and Niamh, you might as well tell everybody, if they haven't seen, how to spell your name, because it's the way you pronounce your name and the way it's spelled is very different. So they'd have to really look for you. So
yeah, it's the traditional Irish way. So Niamh. It's always a trouble for people to pronounce it.
I'm Irish.
Oh, really? Where are you from?
Eureka, California, but I am Irish.
Irish American, right?
Irish American.
Well, I am not Irish, but that's okay. I'm Italian and Spanish is me. So that Mediterranean thing going on. So also want to thank Rand for jumping on. We'll see Rand next week in the Prog Seat. So stay tuned for that on Tuesday nights. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube
all the damn time.
So for Niamh and Rand, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. See you soon.
Peace.